So if we all have to ask this question, why is IT unable to deliver value? So we know that IT is a key enabler to any business. And when we look at DevOps in terms of the full stack, in terms of what we call the culture, practices, and automation, and then if we ask this question, okay, why is that IT is not able to deliver value? I mean, these challenges would fall into these categories of what we call the full stack. If we look at people and culture, see, most organizations right now are structured into kind of hierarchies and managed in a way that creates some kind of disincentives to collaborate, to innovate, and automate. Then there are specific challenges related to processes and practices we adopt to bring in those required transformations. So over time, I mean, most organizations have become kind of held back by processes which are overly complex, which may be inefficient, and they might not be flexible enough. And then comes the technological challenges. So because there are cultural and practical difficulties, most organizations simply don't have the right tools or systems in place to kind of support the automation and integration that is being demanded by the IT. So fundamentally, why IT is unable to deliver value is because of these, what we call the full stack. So now when we look at an aspect called silos, it's very, very essential to actually understand what is this silo and what is that we're talking about. So a silo mentality in the workplace occurs basically when people specifically conclude that it's not their responsibility to coordinate their activities with their peers or any other groups. Okay, from where does this silo mentality actually come from? How long? It's been there since the age of the start of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, when we look back at the history and try and understand how this silo mentality became what we call a norm is, there was this gentleman, Adam Smith, who advocated an aspect of task specialization. As we are talking about the early 1750s and 1780s, when what we call probably even before the actual industrial revolution started, around about 1750s if we take. So Adam Smith, when said he advocated this aspect of task specialization. So it means that what he meant was, see, when the industries and the industrialization started, obviously people had no clue about what it's all about, not they had any expertise or prior knowledge. So Adam Smith said that, look, the best way to, bring the workforce into developing and delivering something is to make them specialists, make them task specialists. That means give a task, ask them to, train them and ask them to do the task, and ask them to repetitively do the task till such time they all become experts. And this is what we call task specialization. So as things moved in the 19th century, Henry Ford, for example, bought in the assembly line, produced Model T, which revolutionized the way the American industry worked, especially in the automobiles. And eventually, Frederick Taylor, who introduced the idea of scientific management. And today's present day, the focus is on task specialization, on control and measurements, and so many things. So essentially, the silo mentality started, or even was kind of came into existence or conceptualized even before, or you can just say that you can attribute it to the start of the Industrial Revolution. So when we look at, continue to look at how these silos became the norm. So if you look at current organization structures, kind of encourages a silo mentality, and to a large extent it discourages what we call the collaboration. So a silo mentality essentially occurs when a team, or let's say a department or a business function, shares a set of common tasks across different business functions or teams or different organization units. but they operate distinctively from other groups. So in a heavily siloed organization, cooperation and collaborations are reduced. Roles and departments are not designed to be what we talk about cross-functional. So each individual or a team or a business unit or a business function view their objectives only through their lens of their individual tasks and responsibilities. So they don't look at the other aspects in terms of the other teams or whatever. So when a silo mentality exists, there is also exists what we call a corresponding lack of systems thinking. So systems thinking means understanding that your function is an interrelated and interdependent part of a larger system. So what you do has an impact on other parts or the other divisions of the teams and on the system as a whole. This is what we call or define the aspect of systems thinking. So organization silos that lack systems thinking are the equivalent of trying to get where you need to be without a map. So it's of no use. I mean, you will be nowhere. I mean, it will not help you to take you any further. So yeah, silos do increase the awareness of where you are, no doubt about it. So you know that, yeah, look, I'm here. I have these challenges. We are not collaborating. We're not communicating. So we know that, yeah, these are the problems. This is where we are. But they prevent you from seeing the larger system or the bigger picture in terms of where you are on the map to ultimately get where you need to be. So silos does encourage or help, but then I mean, it increases only the awareness of where you are, but you are still in a kind of a state of being a little helpless. So here we come into a very interesting aspect of what we call silos creating the wall of confusion, and this is definitely the essence of what we are talking about DevOps. So this is a beautiful picture we have on this presentation deck, neatly put and self-explanatory. So silos or this what we call the wall of confusion, this has caused the primary problem in IT that DevOps kind of works to address. So that is of the disconnect between the development and the operations. So in almost every organization, the dev and the operations team are siloed, or there is a silo. So it accountable for and measured against competing set of priorities and concerns. We have to understand two important things here. So basically, they are, the development team and the operations teams are both expected to simultaneously pursue two different goals. Let's see what those goals are. When you look at from a development team, so both of them, the development team and the operations team, they are expected to simultaneously pursue two different goals, as what I iterated. So it means respond to rapid changes happening in the customer and organizational expectations to remain competitive. And then provide customers and partners and all stakeholders with stable, reliable, and secure services. So what happens here is we are expected to simultaneously pursue two different goals. The first goal is we need to respond to rapid changes, which is happening in the customer, in the business, in the organization, and in the market space, and our own organization's expectations to remain competitive. So this is one goal. At the same time, the other goal is we have to provide customers, our partners, and all stakeholders with a stable, reliable, and what we call a secure software service. So when we look at these goals in terms of both development and operations, so let's say the development team is more focused on what we call the agility. It's focused on new technologies, adopting new technologies. It's definitely focused on speed to achieve the first goal. The first goal was to respond to rapid customer changes. So development is trying hard. While the operations is more concerned with stability and the risk factor to achieve the second goal. So the second goal was to provide customers and partners with a reliable, secure service. So what happens now is this kind of puts both the development team and the operations team into a position where they are both required to work together to produce the best possible outcomes. But they also cannot work together because their goals are directly in opposition with each other. So thought leaders like Lee Thompson and Andrew Schaffer, they refer to this difference in the incentives as the wall of confusion. So it's typically a scenario in which the development and the operations both don't fundamentally understand why the other side does things the way that it does or what their needs are. And this impacts development and operations ability to come together to deliver what is being asked of them. So what is being asked of them is to deliver business value. And then